Hey, what's going on, everyone? You are watching Bobsdecline, Lineman blogger, where we blog about anything and everything to do with power lines. So for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Aaron. I've been a lineman on the east coast of Canada for about 18 years now. And today we're going to be covering one of the most requested videos from our viewers, and that is a tour of my trouble truck. So just a few things to keep in mind, guys, as we're going over the truck. For one, this truck is kitted up for service calls and trouble call response. It's not going to be full of all kinds of material to be building lines or doing any line maintenance. So we're going to go over some of the tools I commonly use as I respond to trouble calls and things I use to make scenes safe as I respond to things like house fires, car accidents, all that stuff. And one other thing to keep in mind as I go over the truck, I'm not going to be showing the exact location of what's inside some of the tills. I'll show you how I got my tills rug up. Things like the copper wire and expensive power tools, I'm not going to show their locations or even exactly what I have on the truck. And that's for security purposes. I don't want to have this video go online and somebody come by looking for some of the tools there that are going to be shown on film. Alright, so let's start off here, guys, with a quick walk around of my service truck. This truck is geared up a little bit different than the rest of the crew, where I respond to all the trouble calls in my area. It's a smaller boom truck, single axle, a little bit more versatile to easily get into tight spots. Not the four-wheel drive model, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to have that for my area, especially in the winter time. We're going to start off with our cones. There's simply a pillar there to stack the cones on. That's as high as I can reach. That's about 8 feet off the ground, so they were quite difficult to access. So I got this neat little rig built up where I can actually tip my cones down and access them much easier. When I'm done with those, throw them up in place, keeps things easy. We have our ladder, which is a pretty convenient spot tucked away. That's a 16-foot ladder I got in there. So you yank that out, something I use quite often on service calls. It's nice because it's tucked away underneath the chassis of the truck and allows for a lot more room when working in the back there. And of course, our wheel chocks. I have 4 wheel chocks in this truck, 2 on each side. Once inside there, they sink down in quite tight, so there's no way they can bounce out into traffic. The fire extinguisher. So I used to keep actually 3 fire extinguishers on my truck because where I work at a home and I'm away from the office, it's not uncommon to get 2 or 3 fires in a weekend, and there's nothing worse than using up your fire extinguisher. So this is a newer truck. I'm actually gonna have to get a mount built. I'll probably get something built in this corner with a couple small little spare fire extinguishers. Let's take a look at things while we're up here in the back. So this is the back of my truck. I've got a ton of modifications done up here actually that are designed particularly for my job. My latest one being this box right here. So my old truck, all the tills built around the side were this size. Now this new guy, when they sent it over, I'm not sure why they made these ones so small, but they wouldn't fit my spill kit. So I just had this guy made, and nothing too complicated. We've got our spill kit and our oil bag. If ever there's a leaky transformer, we've got everything rug up in there. I'm also going to be putting some bags of salt in there for the winter time. Lots of room left in there. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to rig that up yet. Definitely gave me some extra room. Now in behind all these stands, we've got a few items I don't use overly often. My step ladder. Usually I'm on hooks or my main ladder, so it's kind of hard to get to that guy back there. I might take him out 2 or 3 times a year though, so that's a pretty good spot for him out of the way. And of course, we have our stop and go paddles, another requirement for all of our trucks. And we got some transformer leads along with a few other wires I don't use real often, tucked away in there out of the way. So you'll see here what I'm leaning over. We look after a lot of lighting. So I've got a little rack built here for some LED lights. I install, maintain all the lights that we rent out to customers. And right here you will also see some cover up. This wrap is good for 1000 volts. When guys are doing siding, roofing jobs, and the triplex going up to the mast is in the way, we promote safety big time in our province. So if there's a roofer putting on a metal roof close to a service entrance, give us a call. We will wrap that up, 1000 volt wrap. It'll make things much, much safer. And under here we have a little spool of streetlight wire. I'm actually waiting to get a spool of tie wire. Right now, I've got a little coil on the back here of tie wire as needed. But I'm gonna get a coil of tie wire placed on this spool as well. And we're gonna drill a hole and put a cotter key in there to keep anything from bouncing out. We use these bags for two things. I got one rug up right here for garbage, and I try and keep this one empty for when I'm climbing up a pole. If I gotta bring up a lot of material, dump all my gear in that, put it on the hand line. I got some carabiners, I'll hook that up on the line while I'm working. And of course, spare wire. We got all shapes and sizes here. Like I mentioned, I am not a construction crew. So most situations, if I gotta run more than a couple meters just to splice a damaged wire, chances are I'm gonna have a big truck there, lots more guys, probably end up needing a reel of wire anyways. So we've got some spare wire there. And next up, we've got our bucket cover, keep the rain out, and all of our secondary attachments. We've got our wedge clamps, we've got our preforms for our guy wire, we've got our service preforms for the triplex, and of course we got our bucket cover on a leash, so if it ever comes off, it's not going far. Try to keep everything on my truck buckled down in the event that there's an accident. Everything is contained in the back, so they're not going to have parts flying all over the place. So let's take a look at what we got in some of the tills here. So one of our main aluminum tills, we've got some pretty basic parts. We got some spare cutout doors. We've got some more service wraps here. I got some of these sleeves kind of tucked away. They're for 336 aluminum. It's not something I'm going to run into splicing very often. And if I do, usually I'll have, as I mentioned earlier, a big truck with me. So we pretty much got some spare insulators, lightning arrestor, dead end units. We've got a load brake cutout, pole top insulator. Just a very basic setup of parts that I run into commonly on trouble, where I can simply call for another guy to give me a hand. We don't need to go to the office and rig up on parts. These are all very common parts to fail during small outages. And in there we got a tool bag with lots of gear for doing underground terminations and any kind of tools that I don't really use real often. That's why I kind of got that bag tucked out of the way. So on our boom, we have some upper controls. This boom can be run from controls right here. Little squirt boom. This whole extension shoves out probably about 10 feet or so. And of course in our bucket, we have our bucket controls, a little flap to keep the snow out in the winter time. We're getting some bad shadows going on here. And I got some rubber padding on the floor. When you're working in the rain starts piling up at your feet pretty quick. So that keeps my feet dry when we get an inch or two of rain. So now this is my most accessible till. That's where I want to put the tools I use the most often. So what we got in here is all my service stuff. Like I said, we work on lighting a lot. I rig up a lot of connections. I rig up a lot of stuff for the city, hook up traffic lights, lighting, crosswalks, anything at all. So that's why we got our quick connectors right here ready to go. Some washers, some lag bolts. We've got our drill bits. This here is actually a fiberglass drill bit for working on pull top extensions. Whole bucket of photo eyes. We got some drills here on the side, all of our sockets. And I rug up these two bars actually for my bucket tray. It sits just perfectly right on top without crushing all my tools. So when I go up in the air, pop that open, grab my bucket tray. I've got a few tools at the back there. Everything's pretty accessible. All the rest of the tools I need, I keep right here in the bucket. If I'm traveling any long distance at all, I'll throw that bucket cover on, just kind of keep things secure. So the truck is also rug up with a whole bunch of these trouble lights. They can be manipulated in all kinds of different directions. That actually pulls out there. I keep this guy folded up in place and angled towards my back end. That way when I'm backing up at night, I can light up the ditch as I'm backing into people's driveways. It's a pretty handy rig. I've got 4 or 5 of those randomly around the truck. So where this is a smaller truck, it only has a couple little stabilizers here. Those legs come down. Get quite wobbly when you're extended over center. And right here we have our outrigger pads that helps disperse the weight on the ground. So we got a couple shovels. I actually got this tube welded onto the back here. Used to have the shovels up in the back and they took up a ton of space. So we got them here in place. We got a bungee cord so they're not going nowheres. There's another one of our trouble lights again there. I got an LED light on the side. I can light that up. It's pretty neat. That'll actually light up house numbers as I'm going on the road. I'll flick that fella on. So let's take a look in some of our tills here. One of these tills, we've got some cover up. This stuff is actually designed to go right on the primary wire. They are insulated for, I believe, if it's a new tested piece of cover up, 45,000 volts. Keep a few of those on board at all times. These things are great for when you're working close to the primary. You got to change a transformer or something, you need to cover things up. Up here we've got my spare rappel kit for the boom. Keep that in the bucket with me when I'm working alone. And of course, back up inside we've got some more safety gear, our triangles for breakdown on the highway, and we've got my amp stick, which we can rig up this amp meter on a stick. And I've actually got a new product coming that's going to replace that, hopefully. So this is also my battery charging station. I've got a ton of different tools from many different companies, and I'm not going to get into all the tools I got. That's not something I want to show on camera, mostly for security purposes. So we've got those kind of hidden away right now. We're moving down further. We just got a bunch of, we got our spare gloves and stuff. We got our broom. I like to sweep up the area when I'm done working with a customer's driveway or something. We've got our torch for the winter time, some spare tape, batteries, spare safety glasses, just a bunch of random parts. And most importantly, our Hornet and Wasp spray. We come across that stuff all the time. So I've got a little bucket of sprays, chemicals, cleaners, all that stuff down in here. So next we've got a little pouch set up on the door with all of our fuses. So you can see they're labeled 3 amp, 6 amp, 10 amp. That's where I keep all the fuses. I try to keep at least 6 of each fuse size. That way I can completely refuse 2 3-phase lines before going back to the office and getting some more. So moving back, we've got, again, we got our higher fuses here, our 140s, 200 amps, and a few other little things. We got our tagging stuff here, hold off tags, work permit tags, conditions abnormal tags, some specialized screwdrivers used for our street lighting, pad mount fuses, which don't blow very often, so I got a couple of each size in here, and our tick kit, which, tape. Moving on into our next till, we have our meter tills. So these guys are calibrated and tested federally. It's not something you want to have kind of bouncing around the truck a whole lot. So I've got a till specifically designed to hold our meters. I've got several different kinds. You can see here, this is a 7-jaw meter, another 7-jaw. We've got some demand meters. Pretty much, I got a 3-phase one in here somewhere. Pretty much everything I'm going to need for any service calls. I've got different types of meters for all different types of setups that I may run into with service calls. And then of course we have our meter puller. We got some adapters for some A-base meters, some spare rings. We've got our voltmeter, some testing equipment, meter grease, some seals, anything I might need for service calls here. Okay, so now we are in our stick till. Everything I need to work on live lines. We've got a real nice hydraulic saw on a tested hot stick there. We've got our bolt cutters, AB stick, our tree pruner, grab all these sticks of which are tested annually. You can see here expires June 21st. And moving down, we have our load buster, potential indicator, and our silicone wipes. Gotta keep those sticks wiped and clean. We've got a little section here with spare parts for underground. So sometimes when I respond to trouble calls, I'll run into an elbow that's burned off or something. We got some spare elbows, some secondary connectors, anything I might need for a quick fix. If I'm gonna need any more than what I've got here, then chances are I'm gonna have to visit the office and go into our storeroom anyways. So carrying on, we have our ratchet cutters, which chances are underground wire is usually a little bit bigger, so we use those ratchet cutters as opposed to the bolt cutters. Whole bunch of spare attachments for my hot sticks, our colored tape and sap tape for the underground, our beaver tail. Let me know in the comments if you guys know what this is and what a beaver tail is used for. Caution tape, show up, cordon off an area, works great for when you're working in the city. And our pole numbering kit. Every pole, every piece of equipment's numbered, lettered, it's identified, so we got all that stuff in that little kit there. And my next tool back, we've got some guards. We got some bird and squirrel guard for the top of transformers, some new stirrups, longer bolts, kind of some random parts in this till that I didn't have room for. I got a whole bunch of random sleeves. These are all compression sleeves here. Try not to use those a whole lot when we've got our quick sleeves. These are good for number 2, number 1 ACSR, and our 1/2 watt, probably the most common wire run in the area. So we've got our quick sleeves, our quick connectors for working in tight spots and secondary, and our quick sleeves for working on guy steel. And next we have a whole bucket full of grounds here. I just did a job in the underground, that's why I got this guy in here. It's a ground specially made up for working on underground wire and all of our 2-aught primary grounds. Another really commonly used tool within our trade is our come-alongs, or our pullers we call them. So I've got a whole assortment of pullers. We got some ropes and some straps, mule grips. Pretty much anything I use for rigging I keep in this till right here. I had to get these hooks extended. You can see where there's a weld on there. You hit a bump and all these come-alongs were jumping off and landing on the floor. So all right, so the sun decided to come out now. So this till is all the random parts and nuts and bolts. I've got my dies up here, machine bolts, the more commonly used tap clamps and stirrups, house clevises, just all those random parts. We got some trays. We've got some trays built here with everything I need. J-hooks, staples, lag bolts, all that good stuff. Another tray over here. We actually do a lot of work on the telephone lines as well, so I got some parts in here for rigging up some telephone stuff. The only thing I'm really not happy with, they built this whole section way too low. I keep all my crimpets down here, and I can barely get my hand in there. That gap's a little bit too small. When the crimpets get low and I gotta reach in the back, I can't quite reach things. This is well for the tools. Now most of the time I'm in the bucket or using the tools off my belt, so I just kind of have some spare tools right shoved in there. Not something I get into real often. So this till here, we've got some of my spare gear, an extra hard hat, raincoat, some chainsaw boots. This is one of the heated tills, so I keep my paint here for doing locates, my locator itself, some of the newer rigging ropes that haven't been damaged by oil and stuff yet. Once the winter time hits, this till gets quite a bit more stuff piled into it. Extra boots, socks, anything that I want to keep warm gets piled into this till. And of course our rigging till, where I keep my hooks and my belt and my harness. We've got a quick access extendo stick right here. So I keep this guy on this side along with my harness and that. When I get into emergencies, I can jump out of the truck. My hard hat's in the cab. grab the extendo stick, grab my rubber gloves, grab my harness. Everything is right here that I need to quickly dump a line. I walked by it 10 times now and I never pointed out this is a level for the truck. So when you're setting up the boom truck, in fact most boom trucks have to be within 5 degrees in order to go up in the lift. So front and back, we can turn that side to side. You have to make sure your truck is fairly level before it's safe to go in the bucket. All right, so we're in the cab now, out of that wind. And one of the toughest thing when you're running these boom trucks, there's huge blind spots over there. You're pulling up to a stop sign, you got to really take that extra 4 or 5 seconds to make sure nothing's coming. So my vehicle is 11 feet 2 inches. It's a little bit taller than my last truck. I believe my last truck was 10'6", so it's actually quite a bit taller. And of course we get all of our fancy buttons and stuff, our beacon lights, everything which is LED now, which is really bright at night, the new LED stuff. I've actually got this little list I made up here on my visor to keep track of my hydraulic inspections, services, all the dielectric tests, all that stuff. So just to make sure I don't miss any of my appointments. I do that at the start of the year, covers me for the whole year. We've got our inspection sheets up top. Little speaker I use to listen to podcasts. I try not to listen to mind-numbing radio all day and listen to something half educational on those long drives. And we've got a spare FR shirt and spare safety glasses tucked up in there. I don't know how many times in my career you get a call 3-4 a.m. and you take off down the road and you realize as you were woken up at 4 in the morning that you never grabbed an FR shirt or something. So I always keep spare FR gear in the truck. That way, if I take off in a hurry, I'm always sure that I have the proper gear as needed. You can see right behind me my reflective vest. I don't keep my FR shirt on all day, especially in the summer. It's like 30 degrees out right now, so I got a super thin t-shirt on. If I go up in the bucket, put the FR on. If I'm just doing custom interaction stuff, I'll use my high vis. It's got the company logo right on it, everything, so that way it's still part of a uniform. And of course my hard hat, which I keep directly beside me, again for quick access when I arrive to calls. Grab my hard hat, grab my high vis, and my safety glasses, which always kind of seem to find their way onto the dash there. So next, of course, we have our Panasonic Tough Book, where we get all of our work orders. It's got maps, all of our line diagrams, everything that we need is available. The technology has really made troubleshooting much, much easier, having access to computers. And kind of got a mess going on here right now. Keys and stuff, and business cards for half the city. In here, we've got folders for all the different types of paperwork, underground locates, tailboard conference sheets, metering sheets. There's a ton of stuff. I got some more in behind the seat there. It's kind of crazy the amount of paperwork we gotta look after as linemen in this day and age. And some TP and some wipes. So we got our radio. We own our own towers, so we can communicate our two-way radio with all the other vehicles. I mentioned the controls. So this is actually the remote control for that light we got on the hood there. So I do keep a flashlight right here beside my driver's seat. That's another piece of equipment I grab as soon as I respond to quite a few trouble calls. We grab our hard hat and flashlight. I just got this little guy to keep the truck clean. A little dirty right now though. So last and certainly not least, we've got our burn kit and first aid kit right here in behind the seat. That's why I've got the sticker identifying its location outside the cab. So if there's an incident, someone's panicking, they look on the side of the cab, they know exactly where the burn kit's located. And I've got similar on the other side. We've got our first aid kit on this side, which is again right in behind the driver's seat. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'd love to show you all the fancy power tools and chainsaws I've gotten stuff on board here, but like I did say, unfortunately there's not a whole lot of honest people in this world, so I try to keep their location somewhat hidden. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tour of my truck. Don't forget to drop me a fist bump in the comments along with where you're watching from. Oh, and that tool, the beaver tail, if you know what that's used for, mention that in the comments as well. And We'll see you next time.